Hello. This video is about skill 13, which is factoring the difference of two squares. Now, I will be initially providing you a formula for factoring a difference of two squares, but eventually I want you to be able to memorize this formula by the time you get to our next mastery assessment. But the good news is that if you do that, and you do a lot of examples, you should be able to have it pretty well memorized. So the formula says that we have two numbers that we square, or they could be variables. So if we have a squared minus b squared, that factors into a plus b times a minus b. Now to kind of illustrate this, let's look at example 5. Now in example 5, I have x squared minus 9. And 9 can be rewritten as 3 squared. So you want to know what your perfect squares are. I think that would be very helpful to remember. If not, you can go to your calculator and enter what the square root of 9 is. So the square root of x squared is just x, and then the square root of 9 is 3. So I'm going to write this as x plus 3 times x minus 3. And I say that because my a is x, and then my b is 3. So I got x plus 3, a plus b, times a minus b, which is x minus 3. Example 6 is a little bit more difficult because you do want to pull out that 4 first, so you do want to think about what your GCF is. And we're going to call this 36x to the 6th. A little typo there in your notes. So I pull out the 4, and I get y squared minus 9x to the 6th. And we want to think about it's something squared minus something squared. Now, the square root of y squared is just y, so that's going to be our a. And in our b term, we do what's the square root of 9? That's 3. And then the square root of x to the 6th, well, if you take the square root of a exponent, you're just going to simply be dividing the exponent by 2. And we get that that's going to be x cubed. So my a term is y, my b term is 3x cubed. And I'm going to go to my formula. I got y plus 3x cubed times y minus 3x cubed. And then don't forget, you did take out the GCF. Now, what I do want you to try a little bit in class are these U-try problems. Part A, this is a pretty straightforward. Can you identify what the square root of 100 is? And you should be able to recognize that you are squaring the z. And you pretty quickly get z plus 10 times z minus 10. I want you to change part B to 8x squared minus 128, so that way you can pull out a GCF. And you can actually see here that when you pull out the GCF, you do get a nice straightforward completing the square, or not completing the square, but difference of two square problem. So this is x squared minus 4 squared. So that's x plus 4 times x minus 4. So remember, we got our a and our b. And then for part C, if you take out the negative sign, you should be able to get a nice difference of two squares setup. Now, here's a word of caution. This is a do not use advisory. Stop. If we have a sum of two squares, there is no such thing as a sum of two squares. So you cannot use the difference of two squares formula for x squared plus 9. And in fact, if you try to factor it using the ACB chart, it is not factorable. So do not use or ever use the term sum of two squares. However, if we have x squared minus 9, we can use the difference of two squares. So this is really the lowdown of skill 13, which is just being aware of the difference of two squares. And the good news is that we will see skill 13 again embedded in skill 14. And this is just one more tool that you can add to your factoring toolkit, which we are going to continue to perfect throughout this quarter.